1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse number 10. And let these also first be proved, then let them use the office of a deacon, being found blameless. And on the broadcast yesterday, I was dealing with the matter of proving. Let these first be proved, and that would be the matter of the deacon. The deacon is to be proven. He is to be tested. Paul the Apostle states, lay hands suddenly on no man. Many times we move into a position, or we align ourselves or pledge our allegiance much too quickly on many matters and with many individuals. I've known of churches to hear a man preach one sermon or two sermons and then call that man to be their pastor. Too often a man comes into a church and is there for a year or less because he's well groomed, and I think men ought to be well groomed and well spoken, and I think men ought to be well spoken and educated, and I think you ought to be as educated as you can possibly be. We say, well, this man needs to serve as the chairman of the deacons, or this man needs to serve as the superintendent of our Sunday school. A man may have an engineering degree, and I have the greatest of respect for that. A man may have a Juris Doctorate and may be serving as an attorney, and I have tremendous respect for that and the study and labor and effort that goes into earning a degree like that, passing the bar exam. But just because a man serves as an attorney or has an engineering degree and serves as the chief engineer of some major engineering firm does not necessarily imply that he knows everything there is to know about the Bible or church government or the operation of a local assembly or the administration of a Sunday school. I didn't say the man couldn't learn, but an engineering degree is not necessary for Sunday school administration, you see. And just because a man may be a medical doctor and have a degree in some field of surgery and may be an expert in some field of surgery does not imply that that man's an expert in the book of Isaiah, the book of Jeremiah, or the book of Romans, you see. Let these first be proved. Lay hands suddenly on no man. But after the men have been proved, and the genuineness of their profession, holding the mystery of the faith in a pure conscience, is evident in the fact that they can serve. And I don't know that every man qualified is capable of serving and executing the office of the deacon. There are men that know as much about the Bible, maybe in some circumstances. There are men on the pew that know more about the Bible than the pastor does. But just because those men may know more about the Bible than the pastor does not necessarily qualify them to be the pastor. I've been a Bible student, a serious Bible student, for nearly 40 years of my life. The last 38 years, my life has been entirely occupied with the reading and rereading and reading again and the study of the Scriptures. But I'm not for certain that I'm qualified to pastor a church. My personality and my demeanor, and I don't know that I'm qualified to be a pastor of a local church. I think I meet all the qualifications that are here in this passage, but that door is never opened up to me. That opportunity is never opened up to me. I think I'm entirely qualified to do what I'm doing here on the Bright Spot Hour and what I've been doing since December of 1994 through this outlet of the radio. And I think that it's good for a few men like me to be around to say, this is what the Bible says. This is what the Bible says. This is how the Bible reads. And I know I probably thwart some men's outlet. I'm probably a square and tight-laced when it comes to the Bible and interpreting the Bible, but it's good for a few fellows like me to be around. Theologically speaking, I'm the surveyor, and the engineer that keeps everybody else inside their property line. And I think there's a place for me. And I think that place for me has opened up. But just because I may be able to meet the qualifications of the bishop is not necessarily to imply that I am to be the bishop. And so it is with the men that are ordained as deacons. I'm an ordained deacon, Baptist deacon. But I don't know that every man qualified to be a deacon should be ordained to be a deacon. Paul says, let these first be proved, then let them use the office of a deacon, being found blameless. Now that's a very interesting statement. Let them use. When I use this term use, we carry the idea of the employment. Let them employ this office of the deacon. Let them handle this and occupy this position. Let them hold this position and put this position that they have into action. Let them put this into use. This becomes a practice, a customary practice, using the office of a deacon. Now, there can be many questions concerning what are deacons to do. The word diakonios means a servant. And I think that the office of the deacon is a little broader than just administering the elements of the Lord's Supper. I wonder sometimes, do I have time to serve as a deacon? Though I might meet the qualifications, do I have time? Especially in larger churches and more metropolitan type churches. There could be times when you'd have 20 or 30 people in the hospital at the same time. And it would be quite difficult for the pastor to make his rounds with them. I can remember when I served on the staff at the Tabernacle, we had 3,000 members. And there would be many times when we'd have between a half a dozen and a dozen people in the hospital. And my grandfather never lingered. When he made hospital calls, he never sat down in the room. He never sat down in the room. He would step into the room, he would look around to see if a flower had been sent from the church, and he would inquire about the health and the well-being of the individual. He'd ask if there was anything they needed, and then he would have a prayer for them and would leave. My grandfather nobody was ready for my grandfather to leave. He always left before they were ready for him to leave. He didn't wear out his welcome. But he would identify, now brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so is down the hall or on the next floor, and I need to go visit them. And if you spent 5 minutes in each room, you're spending an hour, 50 minutes, if you have 10 people in the hospital. And that's if you spend 5 minutes in the room. Not counting the time it'll take you to ride the elevator or go up the steps or walk down the hallway. And you know, the hospitals, they don't have parking for clergy. They make the clergy park out on the yard with everyone else. And sometimes it'll take you 10 minutes to walk from your car into the hospital. And if you visit 10 people, you're going to be at the hospital for an hour and a half. Well, now, you imagine a church that has a large membership. You can have 12 to 20 people in the hospital. Tremendous burden that would be placed upon the pastor to make that many calls. Now, I think the work of the deacon would fit well there. I remember years ago now, we had over 30 or 40 shut-ins in our church, and people that were on the roll that would never be able to come back to the church again. And that becomes almost impossible. My grandfather, with his extensive and heavy schedule, set as a goal to try to visit each shut-in at least once a year. And I'll try to get by there at least once every 6 months. And some of the people live 30 miles away, 20 miles away, 40 miles away. And the logistics become difficult. Well, I think that the deacon can fulfill that aspect of his office. Let him use his office. Let him use this office of the deacon. He could put that to work. If you had a deacon board of 20 men and you had 200 shut-ins in a large church, you start dividing those up, why, that's 10 shut-ins per deacon that deacon will be responsible to visit. And if he makes one visit per, he's going to have 10 deacons, or 10 shut-ins rather, and he's going to visit all 10 of those in the course of a month. Then you're only leaving 20 days, and you take out Sundays, Saturdays and Sundays, and that deacon is going to be busy almost every night, driving out to a shut-in's house to make a call, and then driving back in. They take a great deal of logistics to call on shut-ins like that. If the deacons are to make these calls, let him use the office. Let him use the office. Now, for a man to say, well, I'm a deacon in the church and God called me to run herd on the pastor, and God has raised me up to keep that preacher down there straightened out, and to keep that congregation down there straightened out, and to keep them on the straight and narrow. I don't think that's the office of the deacon. I don't think that they're using the office of the deacon. I don't think God raised up the deacons to run herd on the pastor and to keep the pastor straightened out. And as far as I can discern from the Bible, that would not qualify as the office that the deacon is to occupy, the office. I think there are a lot of men that are not called to preach. God has not ordained that they preach, and just to be entirely honest with you, they are utterly incapable of preaching. And so they want to be a deacon so they can hold that office or hold that position. If you're going to execute the work God's called you to do, and you're going to execute that work well, then you are going to be a busy man. A Sunday school teacher that is going to teach Sunday school, if he's going to do right by a Sunday school class, he's going to have to become a Bible student. And that doesn't mean that he's going to read the quarterly 15 minutes and then stand up and teach. But he's going to spend hours and hours and hours every week preparing to bring a 35 or a 40-minute Sunday school lesson. My time has gotten away from me. I'll continue with this, the Lord willing, on Monday. Tomorrow we'll enjoy my late grandfather.
Box 4, Greenville, South Carolina 29602. This is Mark Ferguson saying be by your radio tomorrow for the